Hey, you guys, it is 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. My name is Michelle Neski, the Posh PA. Thank you guys so much for registering for this free webinar. It is my first one, and I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to talk for a few minutes. I have a couple of slides, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions, and I'll answer them kind of as we're going along, as people sort of roll on here, and we'll make this as interactive as possible. I have gotten some questions via email as well. If you don't know about me, my name is Michelle Neski. Like I said, I've been a PA, practicing PA for 14 years. I graduated from the Yale University PA program in 2005. I have been the former president of the Association of PAs in Oncology and involved in many different leadership. I have multiple publications and research in oncology as well. And recently I started helping pre-PAs on their journey to PA school and beyond, which has been super rewarding to me. I currently work in oncology. I have been in oncology since 2007. So I initially started in internal medicine, hospitalist medicine. That's what I'm currently doing now is oncology. I've been in medical oncology, where we take care of patients receiving chemotherapy and things like that. So let's get started. I want to tell you a little bit about my PA journey. Nobody in my family was medical. So I was the first person in my family to go into a medical career. And so it was really, really hard for me to find resources back in 2003 to try and see what I should be doing to get into PA school. Luckily, I had a family friend who was a PA who helped me along the way. Otherwise, World Wide Web wasn't really happening back then. There wasn't a lot of information. And so that's why I just love providing this information to you guys and helping you as much as I can, kind of rolling through to avoid what I had to go through back in the day. So let's move forward. I'm going to start here with my first slide. Alrighty, let's share my screen. Okay, so we are talking today about your application timeline. So when I say find your focus, I really want you to think about where you are and not where everybody else is. So if you had just decided yesterday that you wanted to go to PA school, great, but don't compare yourself to somebody that's already halfway through the process. Meet yourself where you are and be realistic. So if you just decided in the past 2 months that you wanted to go to PA school, and what you should be doing right now is looking at schools, seeing what the prerequisites are, seeing what you need to do for patient care experience, and all of that. And not comparing yourself to somebody that has all of that done and is currently in the CASPA process, okay? Because you guys are in two completely different boats as we move on through each timeline. So everybody's timeline is going to be different, and it's really important for you to think about what you're doing and not what everybody else is doing. The number one thing you can do to help yourself out is write everything down and do your research. What do I mean by that? If you've decided that you wanted to go to PA school, the very first thing that you need to do is buy the applicant's manual for PA programs and start going through PA programs and figuring out what you need to do in terms of prerequisites, in terms of patient care experience, what kind of hours you need, what is accepted as that, volunteer experience, shadowing, all of those things that you will need. You need to make a list and you need to write it down. If you have absolutely no idea which school that you're going to go or want to apply to, it doesn't matter. Pick a couple that are in your area and start getting the information and start writing down the prerequisites. All the schools have different prerequisites, but most of them are the same when it comes to your general science courses, so you can at least start there. Number one thing you want to do is focus on your top priorities. And to me, your top priority is doing well in school, your GPA, and getting your prerequisites completed in a timely fashion. The second thing is your patient care experience. You need that hands-on patient care experience that most schools are going to require for you to get entrance into their program. And then the third thing I put here, which I probably should have put as the first thing, is knowing your why. And what does that mean? It means, why do you want to go to PA school? And I'm not talking about, because I want to help people and this and that. Yes, that is why you want to go to PA school, but really why do you want to go to PA school? Is it because you love medicine and you want to get out into the workforce faster and really start getting your career going? Is it because you like the flexibility and you want to be able to do other things in your life and be a PA because you love taking care of people? Whatever it is, you need to write it down. Why do you need to write it down? Because it is going to get tough. It's going to get hard. And when it gets tough and when it gets hard, you can go back and read your why. It should be on the first page of your notebook. It should be on your mirror in the morning. It should be when you wake up in the morning, you see that why and you say, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm suffering through organic chemistry. This is why I'm exhausted working and going to school at the same time. This is why, because I have this end goal. And in order to meet that end goal, you need to know your why. So the next thing I'll say is your prerequisites and your GPA. Your number one priority is doing well in your classes. Number one predictor of how you're going to do in PA school is GPA, whether we like it or not. A lot of the questions I get asked is, what major should I pick? Should I not pick biology? I really don't know, I want to stand out. Listen, I don't care what major you pick, as long as you can cover your prerequisites and you do well in it. If you pick a major you don't like, you're not going to do well in it because you're not going to like it. So if you love biology and that's what you want to do, then that's what you choose. You just have to do as best as you can in those classes. Research the PA programs that you'll meet the requirements for and make a list. Two great resources are the PAEA directory, which is online. That's the Physician Assistant Education Association, and also the Applicant's Manual for PA Programs in 2019, and I'll talk more about that at the end. Patient care experience. There are so many different things you can do for patient care experience, and I really have a blog post about what I feel are the easiest and best things to do for patient care experience, whether you're an EMT, a CNA, or a scribe, or a medical assistant. All of those things are amazing, but they do take some time to be able to not only get a certification if you need one, but also find a position. So start earlier than you think. And if you're going to school and you're working part-time, it's going to take a little longer for you to gain those hours. So start earlier than you think you should. You have to learn how to balance your academic with your patient care experience work hours, and review the PA programs that you're thinking about in terms of how many hours. Some of them have no minimum requirement. Some have 1,000, some have 500. I can tell you about the average of people that get into PA school is about 2,000 or more. So that doesn't mean if you have less than that, you're not going to get in. For example, I got in and I had less than 1,000, right? Times are different and it's a little bit more competitive now, but you have to remember that these hours can be paid or unpaid. So if you do a mission trip or something like that, those hours will count as well. Healthcare experience and more. So other healthcare experience where you're not necessarily hands-on with patients, can be done sort of throughout your education or wherever you are in this process. Volunteering, shadowing, all super important, but if you need to focus on something right now, it's your top two. And that's, I should say top three actually. GPA, patient care experience, and your why. Those are probably top. GRE is not in my top three for priorities. Why? Because some schools require it, some schools don't. In my personal opinion, it doesn't reflect how you're going to do academically. However, a lot of schools have this requirement, and it's something that you don't need to do right away. So if you've decided, you're going to apply to PA school, but you have all these other requirements to meet, don't try and throw patient GRE on top of your patient care and your academics. Wait for a time where you have a nice break. And you can really dig in and study for that GRE and do well, okay? So again, if it's over the holidays, if it's over the summer, and you're like, oh, this sounds good, I think I'll take it now, that's great. But don't get crazy about the GRE and take it while you're taking your hardest courses or you're trying to work to get all this experience. Take a time where you can sit down and dedicate to it. As far as your personal statement is concerned, you really don't need to start this until 2 to 3 months prior to applying, unless you get inspired earlier. Obviously, you can work on it anytime, but if it's something that's making you very overwhelmed, wait a little bit longer, and then you still will have enough time to edit a few times if you do that. CASPA. So for those of you who are applying to CASPA now, which it looks like 70% of you are now, open a CASPA account early if you haven't done so, or if you've already done so. You obviously are familiar with the process, but you just want to get familiar with the interface. You can start uploading your personal information. You can do all that stuff, because if you don't apply this cycle, you can apply next cycle and bring it all forward. The one thing I have been telling people to do is request your transcripts early as you can, for them to get over to CASPA. That way, when you go ahead and submit the application, your application goes from submitted to complete in a more timely fashion, because you need your transcripts in there and 2 letters of recommendation. So get your transcripts early. If you are entering your transcripts yourself, be sure to get a copy for yourself so that you're entering it identical to what it looks like on your college transcript. Notify your letters of recommendation that you have opened your CASPA account, and they will be getting an email, and that this needs to be done in a timely fashion, so you're not waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for those letters of reference to upload. Biggest tip I can give you, and I did this in a recent blog post this week, and how to avoid last week on how to avoid mistakes in CASPA: don't rush it. If you start rushing through this application, you are going to make mistakes. It's better to take your time and have it a little bit longer than you want it to be, and have it be right the first time around, than try to get it in as early as possible and make a ton of mistakes. So you will regret it if that happens. And so don't rush it. Take a deep breath. Work on it at 20 to 30-minute intervals. Don't stare at your computer for hours at a time. That will help you minimize mistakes, and be sure to check out that blog post that I did last week. Obviously, if you need help, you can book an appointment with me at any time. You can check out plenty of blog posts that I have done at michellenesky.com. I'm posting all the time on IGTV, IG, Pinterest, YouTube, or you can email me directly at michellenesky@gmail.com. And the last thing I will show you guys here is that, as a special gift for registering for this webinar, you're going to get 15% off your purchase of the Applicant's Manual of Physician Assistant Programs if you purchase one at www.thepaprogrammanual.com until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night using the code POSHPA. Also, if you book any service with me by tomorrow at midnight, you get $5 off with the code using 5OFF. Okay, so now that I've kind of quickly run through some of my slides and some of my tips, which I tend to talk really fast, but I really wanted this to be more about question and answer. So I would like for you guys to go ahead and ask some questions, and I'll start answering them as we go along. So the first question that I got over email is, it says, I have a year of experience, of research experience as an undergraduate. What will that help me, and is that valuable when applying to PA school? And the answer is yes. Research experience is so valuable in terms of applying to PA school. You definitely have, experience, obviously, if you're doing research, to interact with other people, collaborate. Those are all things that are super important. And obviously, PAs are becoming more and more involved in research. I know I am myself. It is a very important part of our jobs, as we are all practicing evidence-based medicine. So I think it's very valuable experience. Yes, you need to have a hands-on patient care experience as well, but you also need to make sure that you have some research experience in there as well. If you don't, it's fine. But if you do, use it to your advantage. Research is very important. I Another question that I got over email was, how do I know if I am getting all of my prerequisites done? Well, that's pretty simple, right? So if you have your school list and you've decided, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this, then, what do I need? Well, you need to be writing down a list of every single prerequisite that you have to have required and be able to check that box before you apply. It's not that hard to do. If you use the book that I just referenced, or you go to PAEA and go directly to the program websites, it's very easy for you to find out what programs you need. So what programs need what prerequisites. So that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. I'm getting a question here from Kayla. I have 6 years of experience as a caregiver. Will that count as healthcare experience? Of course it will. What type? I will ask you though, what type of experience is it? So that I can give you a little bit more direction on that. As a caregiver, if it's like of a family member, yes, I think that would count. If it is at a nursing home or something like that, it would definitely count. It really depends on what type of experience you're talking about. So if you let me know that, I can get back to that question. Oh, here she is. Hey, Kayla. It's a respite service for special needs and disabled elderly. Absolutely, that will count as healthcare experience. And you should list that as such. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can't see something well. Okay, so next question is, how should I decide if I should retake a course? I think the most important thing about that is you need to decide, what did you get in the course? Because a lot of schools have a sort of a prerequisite requirement that you get nothing less than a C. Okay, some have B minus. So if you have a C or less in your prerequisite and your school says, hey, we don't take anything like less than a C. If you have a C, you're good. But if you got a D, you got to retake it. For the schools that have a B minus, if you got a C, you got to retake it if it's their prerequisite. So they will not, your application will not get looked at because you have a C and their cutoff is a B minus. So that's number one. If you need to retake a class, if you have a grade that doesn't meet your program's requirement. If you are deciding to retake a course because you got a B and you really want an A, then I really think you need to look closely at your overall GPA. I would suggest, however, if your GPA is on the lower side, so we're talking 3.1, and you need to boost your GPA, then you need to look at your courses and see how you might be able to do that, okay? So that would really make my decision on, should I retake this class or should I not? Program requirements, see what their cutoff is, and then if your GPA is on the lower side, do I need to invest my money in retaking certain classes to boost my GPA? That's how I would sort of triage those questions. Next question is, have you noticed that some colleges do not favor college seniors? I've noticed that some schools only accept 5% of college seniors. There are a few schools that tend to accept older applicants. However, with that being said, in my experience, I have not had schools basically outright deny a college senior admission because of their age. That's obviously discriminatory, but there are some schools that take a lower percentage of college seniors, and that may be because of the percentage of applicants they get as college seniors. That might not necessarily be because of their class demographic, if that makes any sense. So, for example, I think you mentioned Duke only accepts 5% of college seniors. That may be because they have a lower applicant pool that are college seniors. With that being said, the average age in PA school is around 24, 25. Sometimes the schools like to see that you have some work experience before getting accepted into a PA program, or some life experience, I should say, and not gone from undergrad straight into PA school. Again, the caveat to that is I have definitely had clients that have applied in college and are graduating today and are starting their PA program in the fall. So I wouldn't let that discourage you. It just may be that it might put you in a little bit different percentage pool when you're applying, because it's a different demographic. So, but I haven't noticed necessarily a trend on that, which is what your question was. Thank you, Mally. Next question is from Gloria. If I volunteered as a medical scribe for several months, but already have plenty of volunteer hours, can I put that in as shadowing instead if I am lower in those hours? I'm practically observing the interaction between the provider and the patient, in addition to being involved in the care plan thought process. So you are a volunteer medical scribe. Am I getting that correctly? Because you can, okay, yes. So, so you can put some of that as shadowing if you are shadowing a PA. Like, absolutely I would. You can't double dip, right? So you have to take some as a volunteer and some as shadowing, but I definitely would do that. I would say that you have this many hours of volunteer as a medical scribe, and then you have, you know, so many hours shadowing a PA during that time. And it's really important to explain that in your description. Okay. So when you enter that into CASPA in the description, you definitely want to say how you observed this and how you shadowed the PAs during that experience, and be very clear and make it very different from your description in your volunteer, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. Okay. From Lara, if you're a reapplicant and some of the people writing your recommendation letters are the same, is there anything you would recommend we tell them to include in the new letter? So I would say that you may want to tell them what's different this time around. What's different about you this time around? And you don't have to tell them, okay? So you don't have to tell them to change anything. But if you are a reapplicant, you may want to just suggest to them, hey, look, I'm a reapplicant. Do you mind saying this is what she's done since the last application cycle that I feel makes her a stronger applicant? So you can do that. You don't have to do that. But if you want to do that, I think it would help, just so that they can see a progression in you, especially if it's somebody that you've continued to work with during this time. I'm sure they've seen some of your personal or professional growth. So you may want to just say, hey, like, you've been working with me for the last year, or hey, I've been shadowing you for the last year since the last time. What do you see different about me? I'd love for you to put that in my letter and highlight that, if that makes any sense. Okay, Deborah. I have done a few medical volunteering abroad, which has been hands-on patient care. I'm not sure I should list this as PCE or volunteer. I would list it as PCE, as volunteer. So there's a spot in CASPA where you put your experience, your patient care experience, and then it says compensated, credit received, volunteer. And you can put volunteer, or you can put unpaid. So pay, I forget exactly what it says there, but there is a place there where you select if you were compensated for it or not. And that is really good. Medical mission trips are really, really good hands-on patient care experience. So I would list it as that, and then I would put it as unpaid, or, you know, volunteer, or whatever it says underneath there, because it's good experience. Okay, Kayla. You're back. Okay, what's your advice on shadowing in California? I've had a horrible time finding professionals to shadow. This is a big question that I get a lot. I will tell you that it is hard to find shadowing opportunities in certain parts of the country, which is interesting. But some areas are better than others. I have a blog post specifically on tips to find your shadow, but so go ahead and definitely check that out. But what basically you need to do is go to your state academy of physician assistants. I would contact somebody there and see if there's a list of if they have anybody or a list of people that will take shadowing opportunities. The next thing you can do is look at local clinics in your area and call them up and see if they have PAs there that would be willing to take a shadow. You can also walk in to an urgent care or an emergency room or any place like that and ask, look, I'm a pre-PA. I'm trying to go to PA school. I see that you have physician assistants here. Are there shadowing opportunities available here? Sometimes you have to do the legwork, which means you can't just go online and email somebody. It means you have to pick up the phone and call somebody, or you may have to just walk in and see if they'll take you. Obviously, on social media, we have a very, very big pre-PA, PA community right now. I can tell you that I myself, as a practicing PA, have a hard time accepting people to shadow me because of the restrictions that are via the hospital and institution. So know that some facilities, particularly academic facilities, it might be a little bit harder to get in for shadowing opportunities. So you may be wanting to look at smaller clinics, offices, things like that. With that being said, some institutions and universities are wonderful about having shadowers come in and have a ton of PAs. So it really depends on your location. Look at your local hospitals, see if they have PAs working there, reach out to them. Again, use your state institution, your state academy, association of PAs. For example, Florida has a great a website, the Florida Academy of PAs. And they have a whole part of their website that's dedicated to pre-PAs. But it is hard to find shadowing opportunities in those areas. So those are a couple of tips, but be sure to check out my blog post on that as well. Okay, so I have from, I don't know that name's, I can't see the whole name, but anyway, I'm attending an open house for one of the schools I'm applying to. Should I wait to submit my application to see if they recommend something else? I guess it depends when the open house is and how far along you are in the application process. You may want to wait just to see if you get a good vibe from that school, if you like it. But you may want to see what they have to say when you go there. However, if you're ready to submit like tomorrow and this thing isn't for another month, then I probably would not wait. I probably would go ahead and do it. It just depends on the timing of that. I always tell people too, my clients that I work with, people that message me on Instagram, you have to understand, you are trying to get into PA school, and I'm sure that you have the inclination to apply to like every school that you can because you only want to do this one time and all of this stuff. But you have to remember that you have to look for a school that fits you too, because you're going to do well if the school is right for you, if that makes sense. I know I say that a lot, but if you are, for example, living in a city and you really want to work in a city, then applying to schools that are focused more on rural and underserved areas probably are not going to be a great fit for you. Something like that, you need to be interviewing them too. You want to make sure that it's an environment in which you're going to thrive in, that the way that they run their program is a way that you learn well because you want to do well in the program and graduate. So, so just be sure it's a good fit for you too, and you're not just applying willy-nilly everywhere just to get in. Okay, Victoria, I'm moving to Charleston, woohoo, in June from Indiana. I'm very unfamiliar with this area. So was I. Where do you suggest I start as far as looking for jobs that allow me to get patient care hours? So you are a pre-PA and you're looking for patient care experience hours. Is that correct? I'm assuming that is correct. So yes. Okay. So do you have, my next question would be is, do you have a certification as anything? Do you have a CNA license? Do you have an MA license? Anything like that? Are you, do you scribe? Do you do anything like that? Because here in Charleston, there are a few different hospital systems you can look at. You can look at MUSC and Roper and East Cooper and Trident. There also are a lot of smaller practices in areas. So if you have a specific certification or license for something, that would help me answer that question a little bit as well. Okay, I do not have any certification. That's my next goal. Okay, perfect. So the first thing that you should do is start looking for what type of certification that you want to do if you want to do one, whether that's CNA, MA. Scribes do not need a certification, I will say that. However, some schools do not accept scribing as patient care experience. They accept it more as healthcare experience. That's a bit of a debate. I feel like it's great experience. That does not require certification. So that may be something that you want to look into. I've had 2 PA students on rotation with me that are in PA school that both started as scribes and were amazing. So that's definitely something to look into. If you're getting a nurse assistant certification is usually fairly quick, somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks, and then you can find a job either as a patient care assistant or a nurse assistant somewhere in the area. We have a lot of different opportunities. So definitely email me directly about specific places in Charleston. But the first thing you need to do before looking at specific hospital systems and things like that is which certification that you want to do. Okay. So Jesse, I'm attending a PrePA workshop at my first choice school. No, I'm still finishing my undergrad. Okay. Any tips on making a great first impression aside from being professional and enthusiastic? I think, tips on that, obviously professional enthusiastic is great, but really ask pointed questions and specific questions about their program. Go in there armed with questions that will make them be like, wow, they're really interested in this program. They're asking me really specific questions about, how we run our anatomy lab, about who the instructors are, about what they feel is the biggest strength of their program. What would their students say is the best part of their program? These are questions I also tell people to ask on mock interviews when they say, do you have any questions? And you're just sitting there like, no, I think they answered them all. No, you never answered them all. Turn the questions back on them. What do you feel like is the strongest part of your program? Do you feel that there are any areas of your program that need improvement? I see your pants rates are this, this, and this. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you prepare your students for that? So really get a good list of questions and ask them, and they'll be like, wow, they really are interested in our program. Gloria, is it better to shadow providers and specialties more than just family practice? Can I shadow MDs and Ps, or would shadowing only PAs be better looked upon? I get this question a lot. I personally think if you have the opportunity to shadow somebody, it doesn't matter if it's one specialty or 5. Yes, wouldn't it be great if we could all find 4 PAs in 4 different specialties to be able to shadow? And if you can, amazing, go ahead and do that. But if you just have the opportunity to shadow at a family practice and get tons of hours, that's better than getting 1 hour here, 1 hour here, and 1 hour here. I also feel like if you have specific interest in an area, then you can find PAs to shadow in that area to see if that's an area that you really like. Like I said, if you have the opportunity to shadow 1 or 2 different specialties, I think it's great. You don't need to do 4, 5, 6 specialties, okay? So it's really about the quality, to me, it's about the quality of your hours. So if that is mostly in family medicine, then it's mostly in family medicine. But if you have the opportunity to find a different specialty that looks a little bit more versatile because you've gone to different places, amazing, that will enhance your application even more. I tend to tell people to focus on PA shadowing. Yes, an MD and an NP is great. You can see the different aspects of the different relationships and what the different roles are, but you are applying to PA school, and they really want to see that you shadowed PAs. So If you do have some hours shadowing a physician, that's wonderful. If they have an advanced practitioner that they work with, then you can say, I shadowed this physician and really learned how the MDs and PAs or NPs communicated together, and it really reflects that. But try to focus on PA shadowing hours. From Michelle. Nice name. Once someone has their application ready, just the GRE, would it be smart to first apply to schools that don't take the GRE, and then after taking it, apply to those schools? You can totally do it that way. If you want to get your application in early to some of these schools and you don't want to wait for that score, then you can certainly go ahead and apply to those schools and then add the other schools later. I think that's completely fine. With that being said, the GRE typically doesn't take that long to get to them, but it depends when you're taking it. But I think that is actually a smart plan. If you want to get in early to those other schools that don't require the GRE, go ahead and apply. And then if you add those other schools later, I think that's fine also. Okay, so I think I missed a question here. Okay, Mally, when you're listing your patient care hours, do you need to be specific to the hours spent with patients or your shift hours? For example, I worked a 12-hour shift but only saw patients for roughly 6 hours. Honestly, I think you list the amount of hours you worked. Because if you're working 12-hour shifts as a patient care assistant, I don't care if 6 hours of them were with patient care. I mean, you're still doing other things that are patient related during that time. So I would definitely say to list the 12-hour EMT shifts, because the rest of the time you're learning other valuable skills. And so I think you should list them as 12-hour shifts for sure. Okay, let's see. I have another question here. Nope, I don't have another question here. Do you guys have any other questions here right now? I think we're sort of rolling along. We got like 15, 20 minutes left. How would you prove your shadowing hours? Is there something the PA or physician you shadowed should give you, or should we reference their info? So you have to put their info in. And so their email and their contact address or whatever. So there's nothing specific that they need to give to you. If you yourself want to keep a log, that's probably wise, and have them sign it. So if you kind of just run an Excel spreadsheet and say, shadowed Michelle 5 hours this day, 7 hours this day, blah, 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 and then have me sign it at the end of the time, that's just a great way to do it for yourself. It is another thing for you to do, which can be annoying, but at the same time, at least you know. On the other hand, it's not something you really have to do, as you have to put their contact information in there anyway. Deborah, what is considered early when submitting to CASPA? Good question. So basically, it used to be more like June, July was early. Now we're seeing a lot of people apply May, June. And that's because they want to be kind of some of the first applications that are looked at in the process. I think if you're in June, you're totally fine. You have to look at the deadlines for your programs. And some of the programs are rolling. And so it doesn't necessarily matter as much for those programs. But for programs that have application deadlines in the early fall, I would say May, June is early. For ones that have application deadlines later, like December and January, I think you're okay getting in there in July, towards August. But really, I would say May, June is considered early for CASPA. Okay, we got another one here. And that is, Jesse, does it look okay to take a gap year after undergrad to get all of my patient care experience? I will be shadowing while finishing my undergrad. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And a lot of undergraduates do that. In my personal opinion, I think it really gives you an opportunity to get out into the workforce and get some life experience and gain all of those hours. You may want to start doing it a little bit earlier than you anticipated, like I said before, because you definitely want to have, a lot of hours under your belt. But I don't think that there is anything wrong with taking a gap year. I think it's smart. I think most people you'll see doing that. So it doesn't look bad at all. You just need to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get into PA school during that year. So like I said, the average age of a PA student is somewhere around 25. So people are taking gap years, and that's okay. Okay, I have noticed more schools are beginning to move towards the Casper test. Is there any recommendations you have towards taking this? So yes, they are. And that's very much what like an MMI, multiple mini interview, is like if you get an interview to PA school. It's a thought process kind of test. They want to see how you think through different scenarios and situations. It tells them a little bit about how you think and learn and your personality and all of those things. There's no good way to study for this. It's not really a test that you necessarily study for. I've taken one for a job interview. And so they really want to see that, how you're sort of thinking through a process. And I think there are things to look at online. If you look up typical Casper questions and things like that, you can see what it's about. You can read about it a little bit more on their website, but I wouldn't say that there's necessarily prep that can be done for it. So, go into this knowing it's really about how you think through situations. It's different situations they're going to give you. For example, they may give you, like, it may be medical related, it may be not. Like, you have a discrepancy with a coworker. How would you first handle this situation? And if you say, approach them first, go to my supervisor. If you pick approach them first, it'll take you one way. If you say this, it'll take you another way to a different line of questioning. So really that's how the questions work for Casper. But it is becoming very common because it's kind of like, a lot of businesses are using this before hiring their employees. So it's just another way for them to gauge the way you think through things, the way you deal with relationships, the way you process information, your professionalism, and all of those things. Okay, Vivian, I was pre-med years ago, but realized PA would be a better fit for me and my goals in life. How can I convey that in a way that doesn't come across as PA was my fallback option? Also a very common question. So I get this a lot, and you are not alone. A lot of people think that they want to go to medical school. And a lot of people think that because that's all they knew about, right? Before they heard about the PA profession. And then they're like, this is amazing. Flexibility, shorter time to training, get out into the workforce sooner, all of those things. So you have to word this in a way that doesn't make it sound like it's a fallback option. And you can't even think of it that way. If you start thinking about this as a fallback option, you're in trouble, because that's going to come through in everything you do during the application process. So if you truly don't want to be a PA and you're just doing it because you didn't get into medical school or whatever, you're not going to be successful, and you're going to really regret it for the rest of your life. And so I know that might sound harsh, but it's true. If you truly in your gut know your why and why you want to be a PA, you will never think of it as a fallback option, and you will know the best way to describe this. For example, I wanted to be a PA because I loved interacting with people, and I love medicine, and I love physiology, and I want to take care of people. But I was like 25 years old when I went back to PA school, and I didn't want to spend years and years of my life and training, I wanted to get into the workforce sooner. I also didn't want to commit to a specialty because I just couldn't. And I just didn't feel in my gut that being a physician was right for me. I also wanted the ability to have a career a little bit faster and really get out there and get into the workforce and get my life going and be able to help people sooner. That's how I would word some of these things. There's very, very, good language that you can use to talk about what your reasons were for changing from MD to PA. And a lot of that involves, lateral mobility, being trained as a generalist, getting out into the workforce sooner, working with underserved populations, providing access to care. So there are definitely ways you can do that. The one thing I probably would stay away from is the work-life balance comment, because while PAs have a little bit more flexibility, you're then saying that no other medical professions have work-life balance, and work-life balance is what you make it. It's not your profession. So I would try to stay away from that if I were you. Victoria, I have already taken the prereqs to the prereqs for science classes needed for PA school. I just don't want to take essentially a year off from biology and jump into a 300 level class. Why? I think, why would you have to take a year off from that? I'm a little bit confused on that question. But if you take Bio 101 and that's your prereq to take biochem, then that's your next step. If you take Bio 101 and Bio 2, and your next step is to take genetics or immunology or some other higher level bio, then I would do that. I think you would be prepared. So I guess I just need a little bit more information on that question too. Any suggestions to brainstorming for the personal statement? Also, when considering letters of reference, could I ask a family friend who's a PICU doctor that knows me well but I haven't worked for? I know schools want a letter from an educator. I take online classes and feel that I don't have a close relationship with my professors as opposed to my boss, this PICU doctor and the PA that I shadowed. Okay, so I would say this. Question number 1, any suggestions to brainstorming for the personal statement? Absolutely. I have tons of suggestions. Number 1 thing, what do you want the admissions committee to know about you? And why should they select you for an interview? What has been your experiences and what are the qualities that you have that would make you a good student and a good PA? What is it that you want them to know about you? What is your story? Start writing those things down. Start saying, why I wanted to be a PA. What was the time in which I thought I wanted to be one? Then what have I done since I've made that decision? If you're a reapplicant, you say, okay, what's different from this time to last time? How can I make this personal statement more about me? It's really important to think about what you want the person on the other side of the paper to know. That's probably my number 1 tip. I would personally not ask a family friend if you haven't worked with them. Is CASPA going to know you didn't work for them? No. But I would think that is a little bizarre to do that. I wouldn't say bizarre. It's not bizarre. It's not quite. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me. I would ask someone that you've worked with that can speak to your skills. I would ask somebody that you've shadowed that can speak to you, speak about your experiences and what would make you a good PA. If you don't have a good relationship with an educator, that's fine. You could ask your boss for, a letter, and that's great. Somebody that's really worked with you. I think sometimes a family friend, it can get a little bit sticky there. If you go shadow the doctor in the PICU, that's great. Then have him write a letter of recommendation. You do it with no qualms. but I would prefer that you actually worked with him before he will write you a letter of recommendation. You don't have to have an educator. Yes, it's good to have one, but if you don't feel like you have a good connection, don't go with them. Go with the 3 people you think are going to write you the strongest letters. You may get different answers from different people on that one, but those are my thoughts on it. What's a competitive GPA for applicants? What separates public institution versus Ivy League in terms of application status? So your first question is, what is a competitive GPA for applicants? 3.6 or higher. Super competitive if you're over that. So if your GPA is 3.8, you're in really good shape. If your GPA is 3.5, you're still in good shape. When you start getting to the lower ranges of GPA, 3.1, 3.2, that's when it's a little bit harder and you need to do other things to make your application stand out. What separates public institution for Ivy League? You mean PA programs, I'm assuming. Most of the Ivy League PA programs will have their statistics online. They typically they don't accept grades in prerequisites B- or less. They usually have a general accepted student GPA around 3.6. They usually have those accepted students as like over 2,000 patient care hours. But that being said, public institutions do that too. It's super competitive right now. So a lot of times the GRE will be in there too with a minimum score of 300. So those are kind of some of the stats. Are there opportunities for PAs to teach? For example, I love anatomy and would love to teach a class for undergrads. Absolutely. I teach classes. You can totally teach. Education is great for PAs. A lot of PAs actually transition into education as they get higher in their career. So yes, absolutely. I give lectures for PA programs all the time. You can get involved with your local university and college and get involved in teaching in that aspect too. There are so many opportunities for PAs to get into education. It's one of the best areas for PAs to grow professionally. So yes. Ooh, I like this one. Do you think that the PA profession will eventually become a doctorate program? I do. Eventually, I think it will. I'm not sure. But with all of the other allied health professions moving in that direction, I think that may be the direction that we're headed in, particularly with already 1 or 2 programs out there. And it's not to be called a doctor. I need to make that clear. It's not to be called Dr. Neske, because there's already one living in this house and he's a bit of a pain. Kidding. But it's not, and it's not to confuse patients, although it might. It's more for your professional growth and your opportunities, whether that's in research or education or management or whatever you go into. I do eventually think it's going to go in that direction. Yes. How many hours of patient care experience would you consider to be competitive? Mira, that's a good question because different schools have different requirements. So some have none, like they have no minimum. Others have a minimum of, like I said, a minimum of 1,000. Some of them have, 2,000, something like that. I think you are super competitive if you have over 2,500. So anywhere in the 3,000 range, you've been doing this for a while, you're in really good shape. 3,000 to 5,000 or more, you're in really, really good shape. If you have less than that, it's really, don't get too freaked out about it. If you have over 1,000, I feel like you're in good shape. Under 1,000, it starts to get a little bit more difficult. So depending on the school. So that is, that's what I would say about that. So I'm just making sure I have, what are your thoughts about PA programs that are 3 versus 2 years? Is it worth it? That's a good one, Gloria. So I went to a 2-year program. PA programs have the liberty to set up their program however they would like, as long as they are making ARC-PA accreditation status. Some of the programs that are 3 years basically are like not a full 3 years or 27 months or something like that. The reason for that is just the way that their clinical, their didactic portion is laid out. Some schools are now doing their anatomy along with each unit. Some schools do it right in the beginning. So like summer session is all anatomy, and then you don't do any more anatomy, and then you go on through your modules. Other schools are doing your anatomy module with your whatever focus you're doing. So for example, if you're doing pulmonary, you're doing lungs in anatomy. If you're doing cardiology, you're doing heart and anatomy. So it takes a little bit longer and the structure is different. Also, schools with medical schools, it can be a little bit challenging in terms of timing. I don't think that there is you get any less of an education if you go to a 2-year school, or any more of an education if you go to a 3-year school. It's really just how it's laid out in terms of their rotations and in terms of the didactic phase and how they plan out their curriculum. So that's really what you need to look at. Some also have a capstone project that makes it a little bit longer. And so those are the things that would really kind of differentiate the two. Like I said, when you're out in practice, nobody's going to be asking you if you went to a 3-year or 2-year program. It's going to be a solid quality education in both arenas. It has to be the right fit for you. It has to be the right fit. It has to be a learning style that you like. It has to be a curriculum that jives with you. So really ask a lot of questions when you're looking at those programs too. This will probably be the last question because we are running out of time here. What are my thoughts on provisional accreditation? There's a program close to home opening soon that's still in the process of getting accredited. Could that affect my career if it changes from accredited to not accredited? Provisional accreditation basically means that they haven't really graduated a class yet to have like PANCE scores and things like that. So if for some reason the program does not meet its requirements and then loses its accreditation, then yes, it would affect it because you wouldn't be able to like graduate from a program that's not accredited. But most ARC-PA provisionally accredited programs do get accredited. It's just that they're new and they're working towards their goal of accreditation and they haven't graduated a class yet and they don't have enough data. But in order to get provisional accreditation, the ARC-PA has been in there and they've done their, extensive review. So it can affect you. So that's just something to think about when you're applying. Okay, I have time for one more. I interviewed with LSU last application cycle. One of the questions was, how would you attempt to rebrand the role of physician assistant to the public? Damn, I gotta write that down. That's amazing. I'm assuming they asked this due to the ongoing involvement and understanding of PAs in the general public. May I ask how you would answer that question? That's a good one. Wow, okay. So I would rebrand this by basically telling the patient population that in calling us physicians. So first of all, there's two things. Number one, there's a hot topic now about whether our name should be changed. I just got a survey from the APA on this and NCCPA. So that may be one way, and that may be what the question was leading to. If you knew about that topic, the choices are a physician associate or something like that, that makes it sound and less confusing than a medical assistant or something of that nature that makes the role kind of seem less than, I guess, in a way. So, but the number one thing I would do is start teaching the public that we are partners with the physicians. This is a partnership. We are a team. We need to start presenting our team to the patients rather than just the doctor. So when the doctor goes to see the patient for the first time, he introduces us all as their team. This is the medical oncology team. This is my physician assistant, Michelle. She sees patients along with me. You will be seeing her and I. We are in constant communication. We are basically branding to the public that we are partners. And I really feel like that's important when talking to people who don't exactly know what a physician assistant are, is to brand ourselves as, independent practitioners that work in collaboration with the physician as a partnership. then they will see the trust between the physician and the PA, and they will then in turn be more apt to want to have a ongoing relationship. Also, I think it's important to highlight, the more time that we can spend with them, the access to care, that we're more available to them. Really important for the public to know that when they come in to see us, they're getting the same high quality care that they would get from a doctor, and that we have access to them. So, I think they were trying to go with the name change kind of topic on that one. But that's what I would say, as my answer. Excellent question. Great one to end on. You guys, we're done. It's been an hour. It's amazing. I have so many questions from you guys. I am going to post this up for the next 24 hours. I really, really enjoyed this. I would love to have some feedback from you guys on future webinars, how you think this one went. Was it helpful to you? Do not forget the 2 promos. One, if you book a service with me by tomorrow at midnight, you get $5 off with the code 5OFF. If you purchase the applicant's manual for PA programs 2019 from the website I put up here before, I'll put it up again real quickly, then you will get 15% off that book, which is honestly like a Bible if you're getting ready to apply to PA school. And here is the code one more time so you can see it. It is POSHPA at www.paprogrammanual.com till tomorrow at midnight. Thank you guys again so much. Feel free to contact me. Go ahead and follow me on my social media outlets and ask me questions. Share it with your friends. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful weekend.